Hello there and welcome to World News Midnight Edition on All 24 News. I'm your host, Karim Zachary. Coming up next are the headlines. On the second anniversary of the resumption of the armed struggle of Sahrawi people is marked by the resumption of international efforts to resolve the conflict in Africa's last colony, supported by a major demonstration in Madrid. A humanitarian corridor in Tigray will be opened. Ethiopian government and Tigray groups accepted humanitarian access to all those in need in this region plagued by 2 years of war. Also coming up in our news, at least 6 people died and 53 were injured when a blast rocked a street in the heart of Istanbul on Sunday. And in the United States, US President Joe Biden says he is to hold crucial discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping after the unexpected success of the Democrats in the midterm elections. Hello again and welcome to the details. The Algerian Foreign Minister, Mr. Mtala Mamra, met on Sunday with his Sahrawi counterpart, Mr. Mohammed Salem Ould-Salek. In a statement after the meeting, Ould-Salek praised the role of Algerian diplomacy and the success it has achieved, calling on the need to empower the Sahrawi people in support for their right to self-determination in the face of occupying Morocco's evasion of its obligations and international resolutions.
لنهنئ الجزائر على الدور المحوري.
We congratulate Algeria on the pivotal role it plays at the African, Arab and international levels. The success of the Arab Summit in Algeria and the continuous successes of the Algerian diplomacy prove that the country, that has 1.5 million martyrs, still has a greater role for peace and stability throughout the region and the world. The Sahrawi issue is witnessing a blockage as a result of the position of Morocco, which is trying to evade its commitments it signed with the Sahrawi Party. We called on the United Nations and the African Union to assume their responsibilities.
Also in our news and in the same file, the 13th of November marks the second anniversary of Morocco's breach of the ceasefire agreement signed with the Polisario Front in 1991. Rabat violated the agreement with a military attack on a number of Sahrawi civilians in the buffer zone of Guerguerat, which forced the Sahrawi leadership to announce taking up arms again in defense of the Sahrawi people and their right to self-determination. Still with the Western Sahara issue, the Spanish coordination of associations with solidarity or in solidarity with Western Sahara demanded on Saturday that a referendum on self-determination be held without any delay in the Sahrawi territory that Morocco occupies. The details with Sofian Kenturi.
It was under the slogan, "They won't silence us, free Sahara now. The only solution is self-determination," that the march took place from Calle Atucha to Plaza de Santa Ana in the Spanish capital. In a speech at the event, Taj Sidi, the president of the Sahrawi Association in the community, emphasized on the role of Morocco in the situation of the Sahrawi people, describing it as the violation of Sahrawi people rights.
We're here to denounce all violations, not only against the Sahrawi people, but also against the African people. Remember that we're all African, and today we denounce the massacre of Melilla. The massacre and the impunity that Morocco receives at the United Nations, and which is approved by this government, the Spanish government, and the European Union with its externalization of borders.
According to Abdullah Arabi, Sahrawi delegate for Spain of the Polisario Front, the decision that Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez made in favor of Morocco's autonomy plan for Western Sahara is very far from the traditional position of the Spanish government, and the Spanish society rejected it.
It is a bad decision. It is very far from the traditional position of the Spanish government. It does not have the approval of the Spanish courts generals. It has been rejected by political parties and parliamentary groups and by civil society, who is now demonstrating against this decision, a decision that does not suit a country that remains the administering power of the territory of Western Sahara, namely Spain.
During the demonstrations, protesters demanded the direct involvement of the Spanish government and the resolution of the conflict in a fair and definitive way. It should be noted that this march was organized on the occasion of the 47th anniversary of the signing of the Tripartite Agreements of Madrid, which had established the illegal partition of the territory of Western Sahara, occupied since 1975 by Morocco.
To the other just cause now, dozens of Zionist settlers renewed their raids on Al-Aqsa Mosque. Palestinian media reported that 119 settlers stormed Al-Aqsa from the Moghrabi Gate and carried out provocative tours in its courtyards under heavy guard from the occupation forces, which imposed severe restrictions on Palestinians' entry to the mosque. On the other hand, the occupation forces stormed the town of Silwan, south of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and raided a number of houses. Still with Palestine, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki and Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul-Ghaid discussed the follow-up of the decisions related to the Palestinian issue taken during the Arab Summit in Algeria and their importance in supporting the next steps on the international arena to protect the rights of the Palestinian people. Al-Maliki called for the development of mechanisms to ensure the implementation of the decisions emanating from the Arab Summit and the summits that preceded it. To neighboring Tunisia now, Tunisian government intends to give up state assets in a number of banks as part of a plan implemented by Najla Boudin's government to reform the banking sector in the country and implement the conditions of the International Monetary Fund to obtain urgent financing from the International Financial Authority.
The government's struggle to reduce its direct and indirect participation in joint banks is expected, considering that the financial sector reform is predictable. It's an essential item within the terms of the International Monetary Fund, according to which preliminary agreement was recently signed to grant Tunisia a loan of $1.9 billion.
The Supreme State Council of Libya will hold a formal meeting in Tripoli on Sunday to discuss the files of sovereign positions and the unification of the country's executive power. This comes in parallel with the examination of the UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Batile, with the Presidential Council over the latest developments in the country and ways to advance the political process to reach elections. To Sudan now, Sudan's leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, on Sunday issued another stern warning to political factions against any interference in the military amid talks with civilian parties to form a non-partisan government. More than a year after the military took power, the latter and its former civilian partners and other political forces have begun UN-facilitated talks to agree on a new political framework.
We warn politicians against interfering with the armed forces. We will speak with honesty. We blocked the partnership with the Party of Change and Liberty because it interfered with the military. So everyone who will talk about our military is our enemy. Every group who tries to interfere with this military is our enemy, and we will not tolerate that.
Still in Africa, a humanitarian corridor in Tigray will be opened. Ethiopian government and Tigray groups accepted humanitarian access to all those in need in this region plagued by 2 years of war. The details in this report.
A significant step towards the implementation of a peace agreement signed at the beginning of November between the Ethiopian government and the rebels of Tigray. The two parties agreed to grant humanitarian access to all those in need in Tigray, suffering for 2 years in a serious humanitarian crisis. The agreement signed by the Chief of Staff of the Ethiopian Armed Forces and the Commander-in-Chief of the Tigray Rebel Forces comes amid talks in the Kenyan capital Nairobi on the implementation of the peace accord signed in South Africa on November 2nd.
Accordingly, we want to express our full commitment for bringing peace and stability to our people and country. Therefore, we will fully dedicate ourselves to implement the Pretoria Agreement and this declaration.
We have suffered untold misery over the last 2 years and still continue to suffer. The commitment we are making our people's suffering will come to an end, and soon.
The signed document also provides security guarantees for humanitarian workers, an action with immediate effect according to former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, Special Envoy of the African Union for the Horn of Africa, present at the signing of the agreement. Initially defeated, the Tigray rebel forces regained control of most of the region during 2021 in a counteroffensive that overflowed and saw them approach Addis Ababa. The rebels then reiterated to Tigray since cut off from the rest of the country, deprived of electricity and telecommunications networks.
To Iran now, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani condemned Macron's meeting with Macron's remarks during the meeting with an anti-Iran opposition figures held on the sidelines of Paris Peace Forum. The meeting with 4 women was held as demonstrations carried on in Iran after the death of Mahsa Amini. Kanani described the meeting as shameful and regrettable.
Friday's meeting between Macron and the dissidents was a flagrant violation of France's international responsibilities in the fight against terrorism and violence. It is surprising that the president of a country claiming to support freedom lowers his level and meets with the hated pawn, who in recent months has clearly tried to spread hatred, violence and terrorist acts in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also against its diplomatic missions as well as diplomats of the Islamic Republic abroad.
At least 6 people died and 81 were injured when a blast rocked a street in the heart of Istanbul on Sunday. The street was busy with shoppers and tourists during the explosion. Investigations were ongoing by the police and the governor's office, who reviewed footage of the area. Ambulances rushed to the scene and police circled the venue. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan believed that the blast could be an act of terrorism and said that the perpetrators would be punished.
First of all, I would like to express my condolences to those who were killed in the bomb attack and wish a speedy recovery to those who were wounded in Istiklal Avenue today. It would be wrong to say this is certainly a terrorist attack, but the initial developments and initial intelligence from my governor is that it looks like terrorism.
To the Russia-Ukraine file now. Antonivsky Bridge, which linked Ukraine's Kherson city to Russian-controlled territory, collapsed, with several sections missing. Volunteers also distributed humanitarian aid to residents of the same region. Shortly after the departure of the Russian troops, Ukrainian soldiers inspected military hardware abandoned by Russian troops during a lightning-fast retreat of tens of thousands of soldiers and equipment.
If our pension was smaller, we got used to it. And their pensions were big, but they meant nothing to us. We took them because willingly or unwillingly, we had to live. I have 4 people who remained unemployed. They were unemployed and I fed them all with this money. Every morning when the TV was working, I would run and turn on the TV to find out whether ours had freed the city. No, and that day I missed it. I saw our neighbors come with flags and I said, "What is it?" I could not understand. I thought how they were not afraid to come, and it turns out that I did not know that it all happened in the evening.
The Russian Prime Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, said that the US was trying to take control of the Asia-Pacific region with the aim to constrain the interests of China and Russia. Let's take a listen.
The Asia-Pacific region, which has been developing for several decades on the basis of ASEAN initiatives, around which an inclusive, open, equal structure of both security and cooperation has developed. The United States, its allies, and the North Atlantic Alliance are now trying to take control of it.
ASEAN summit has concluded on Sunday after leaders of member countries discussed diverse issues of importance in the region and international causes. The summit was concluded with all leaders emphasizing on the centrality and importance of post-COVID reaction. The details with Osama Ayadi.
Several leaders from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and across the world gathered in Cambodia on Sunday for the conclusion of the East Asia Summit. The leaders called for unity and peaceful solutions and reiterated their support for the sovereignty of countries.
We have reiterated the need to respect sovereignty, independence, and integrity. We clarify the importance of an end to the conflict and create space for peace negotiations. We also appeal for help in sending immediate humanitarian aid safely to the people who are in need in Ukraine country.
Negotiations also wrapped up in Phnom Penh to upgrade the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, whose improvements covered aspects of electronic commerce, competition, customs procedures, and trade facilitation.
It was constructive, it was positive, and I think it's a good thing that it happened. I've said repeatedly about the relationship with China that we should cooperate where we can, and that dialogue is always a good thing, and last night's dialogue was very positive with Premier Li, and I thank him for it.
Chinese Premier Li Keqiang called for joint efforts to handle risks and challenges and affirmed that people's voice demanding peace and development in the region has become even stronger. Therefore, countries deepen mutuality beneficial cooperation and join hands in responding to risks and challenges. Indian Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, for his part, ensured that his country shares the same vision with many countries of the South Asian Association. Jagdeep confirmed that India considers ASEAN as a pillar in regional, multilateral and global order.
India places great value on ASEAN as an important pillar of regional, multilateral and global order.
The 40th and 41st ASEAN summits and related summits in Cambodia concluded achieving fruitful results for greater regional cooperation towards post-COVID pandemic socioeconomic recovery.
Democrats claimed another win in Nevada after grabbing one more seat in the U.S. Senate chamber from GOP party, with Georgia the only state where both parties are still contending for a Senate seat. Islam Said has the story.
Another victory for the Democrats. Democratic U.S. Senate Catherine Cortez Masto has been re-elected in Nevada, a triumph that clears the path for the Democrats to gain control of the U.S. Senate in 2023.
I know my family, not only those that are here today, but those that have passed, would be so proud to see me serving as the first Latina in the U.S. Senate.
We won because the American people rejected the kinds of autocracy that the MAGA Republicans, a wing of that party, was talking about.
Masto defeated Republican challenger Adam Laxalt, a former state attorney general, who was recommended by former President Donald Trump.
For the last 15 months, we fought for Nevada, and we fought for America.
The Democrats' victory repelled Republican efforts to retake the chamber and made it even harder for them to block President Joe Biden's agenda. The latter was incredibly happy with the turnout in the U.S. election after Democrats' major win, which enables him to look to his next 2 years in office.
Well, I'll tell you what, congratulations to Senator Schumer. He's got a majority again, and we're focusing now on Georgia. We feel good about where we are, and I know I'm a cockeyed optimist. I understand that from the beginning, but I'm not surprised by the turnout. I'm incredibly pleased by the turnout. So I feel good. I'm looking forward to the next couple of years.
With the results in Nevada now decided, Georgia is the only state where both parties are still competing for a Senate seat. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock faces Republican Herschel Walker. However, none of the candidates has reached 50% of the vote, so the top two now go to a runoff vote on December 6th. Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia were the top battleground for both parties, where some Republicans said they lost seats within reach if former President Donald Trump had not nominated and tested candidates.
U.S. President Joe Biden said on Sunday that the unexpected success of the Democrats in the midterm elections put him in a stronger position to address crucial discussions with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
I know I'm coming in stronger, but I don't need that. I know Xi Jinping. I spent more time with any other world leader. I know him well. He knows me. There's we have very little misunderstanding. We just got to figure out where the red lines are and what are the most important things to each of us going into the next 2 years. And his circumstances changed, to state the obvious, at home. And so we're going to have I think, I've always had straightforward discussion. There's never any miscalculation about where each of us stand. And I think that's critically important in our relationship.
Back to Algeria now. The third edition of Digital and Technology Fair, Digitech 2022, kicked off on Sunday here in Algiers. This event is back after 3 years of absence due to COVID-19 pandemic. And this year, it's hosting 70 exhibitors and international actors in the field of digital transformation. Our own Zahra Farjani went there and brought the following.
Algeria is stepping forward into the world of digitization with the launch of the third Digital Information and Communication Technology Fair, Digitech 2022, that is taking place in Algiers at the International Conference Center of the Latif Rahal. For 3 consecutive days, the fair will bring together 70 international exhibitors from the biggest economic players in the field, as well as several personalities from the world of ICT for conferences and workshops.
Il y a une dimension nationale, une dimension internationale.
There's a national and international dimension in this edition, and there are partners from different countries. What distinguishes this exhibition is the new application that allows everyone to take action in advance in digital matters, and this is the benefit between operators, customers, and investors.
What most characterizes this edition is Metaverse, the virtual world that is present for the first time, not only in Algeria, but also in the Maghreb region. Metaverse allows exhibitors and participants in the fair to share their expertise through various virtual and 3D platforms.
Sinon, le Digitech apporte des nouveautés.
Digitech brings new features from one edition to another. For this one, that'll be a test of a virtual space on a metaverse platform. So it'll be a first in the sector of new digital technologies in Algeria and in the Maghreb region.
Du numérique en Algérie, voire au Maghreb.
The COVID-19 pandemic had a huge impact on the necessity to digital transformation in Algeria, as many CEOs were obliged to run their companies remotely on their PCs, just a click away from their establishments.
Digital transformation is what to transform a company, the processes of company, from standard to digital. And with Dell, we can provide a lot of tools to accelerate this transformation. It will help the companies to transform to digital very fast. We help, for example, the employees not to come to office and to work remotely from home. And a lot of things, even the companies can work directly without intervening directly or to be on site.
This year's Digitech edition will focus mainly on cybersecurity, IT and multimedia. Hence, participants will enjoy a 3-day program rich of digitization, technology and metaverse.
And now for more international news, let's follow this news in brief in this report.
Natasa Pirk-Muzar, an independent lawyer, won the second round of Slovenia's presidential election on Sunday and will become its first female head of state. Preliminary results showed Pirk-Muzar won 53.86% of votes in the runoff, while her rival, right-wing politician and former foreign minister Anzi Lugar, won 46.14% according to Election Commission data, based on 99% of the votes counted.
The independent Moroccan academic Mohammed Al-Hassani considered that Zionism has penetrated the structure of the Moroccan system in an unprecedented way, and that the greatest danger in this penetration affects the vital sectors, security and education.
In an interview with the Washington Post, IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva warned of the risks of the Chinese-American competition for the global economy. She confirmed that U.S. costs on Chinese imports would usher in a new form of Cold War.
Britain's King Charles led Remembrance Day commemorations in London on Sunday for the first time as monarch, laying a newly designed wreath after a 2-minute silence at the Cenotaph War Memorial. Charles, who became king following the death of Queen Elizabeth in September, was joined by other senior members of the royal family, including his son and heir, Prince William. His wife and Queen Consort Camilla watched from the balcony of a nearby government building.
And finally, some football news. Algeria national football team coach Mr. Jamal Belmadi confirmed during a press conference he held in Algeria on Sunday that the friendly fixture held with the two countries, Mali and Sweden, are considered the best test for the Desert Warrior, especially that among the two teams are many active players in the strongest European leagues.
We know that we're going to play against a team who can create difficulties, a team with a certain level. The majority of their team players play in Europe, in clubs who play the Champions League. We all know that it is going to be a difficult match, but this is what we're looking for.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news bulletin comes to a close. For more, do visit our social media platforms as well as our official website. That's it for me. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.